Chodesh Elul once again. We start with the historical significance of Chodesh Elul. It's that Moshe Rabbeinu ascended the mountain for 40 days 3 times. First time was right after the Torah was given. The Torah was given on the 6th of Sivan. And on the next day, the 7th of Sivan, Moshe Rabbeinu ascended on the mountain, where he stayed for 40 days and 40 nights and received the entire oral Torah from Hashem. Came down on the 17th of Tammuz, which is when he found the Jewish people dancing around the golden calf. That's when he broke the tablets, came down with the first tablets, which he broke on the 17th of Tammuz. And we talk about the 5 reasons why we fast on the 17th of Tammuz. The first is because the luchas were broken. Then Moshe Rabbeinu ascended up at the mountain a second time. As it says in the Pasuk, Hashem, and I fell before Hashem in prayer, prayed for you, and Hashem should forgive you for 40 days and 40 nights. And those 40 days and 40 nights, which began, seems, on the 18th of Tammuz, concluded on the 29th of Av. So those 40 days and 40 nights were not so successful. Moshe Rabbeinu did not succeed in having his prayers fully answered, and Hashem should once again accept the Jewish people to be his cherished people as they were before. And then Moshe Rabbeinu went up a third time. And the third time he went up on Rosh Chodesh Elul, and he came down on Yom Kippur 40 days later. The third time, the Eibishter accepted his prayers, with rachamim, with ratzon, with compassion, and with goodwill. And at the conclusion of those 40 days, on Yom Kippur, the Eibishter said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Salachti kidbarecha, I've forgiven them according to your words, according to your request. Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the second set of tablets on Yom Kippur. So the 40 days between Rosh Chodesh Elul and Yom Kippur are called Yemei Rachmim V'Ratzon, days of compassion and goodwill from Hashem to the Jewish people. As the first time round, Moshe Rabbeinu went up to the mountain for the third time. Those were the 40 days from Rosh Chodesh Elul to Yom Kippur. So these are the 40 days every year when the Jewish people has this special relationship with Hashem. Just as the first 40 days before the Jewish people made the golden calf were in goodwill, so the final 40 days were also in a state of goodwill between Hashem and Jews. And when we speak about Ani l'doidi v'doidi li v'shetevus Elul, at the pasuk Ani l'doidi, I, the Jewish people, return to my lover Hashem. V'doidi li, and my lover Hashem reciprocates, turning to me. We say that Aleph Lamed Vav Lamed Ani l'doidi v'doidi li makes up v'shetevus Elul. So we also point out that the 4 words, Ani, L'doidi, V'doidi, each one of those 4 words end with a Yud. Yud in American value of Yud is 10. 4 times 10 is 40. So that refers specifically to the 40 days from the Chodesh Elul to Yom Kippur, when there's a special goodwill from Hashem. That's the historical background of the Chodesh Elul. Now, there are various Rosh Hashanahs in Chazal attributed to the month of Elul. One of them is for Parshas Mishpatim. Parshas Mishpatim, it says, Mati ish v'meis meis yumas. So one smites a person who dies, in other words, one commits a murder. It's punishable by death. Asher lo tzada. If a person did not aim to commit the murder, it wasn't his intention. The Almighty just worked things out in such a way that it came his way. In other words, he killed unintentionally. Then I will provide for you a place to which he can escape, which is the cities of refuge. We're going to read about this with Sedra, about the mitzvah of Arei Mikvah. So just like there is Arei Mikvah in space, geographically, there's a place called the cities of refuge. So there's also Arei Mikvah in time. What is the Arei Mikvah in time? The Arei Mikvah in time is the month of Elul. And the words Ina liyadei v'samti l'cha. Remember the pasuk V'asher lo yitzada v'ha likim Ina liyadei. The person did not aim to commit the murder. But Hashem just worked things out in such a way that it came his way. Samti l'chamakem asher Hashem, I'll provide for you a place to which you can escape. So the words Ina, Liyadai, the Samti l'cha, make up Rosh Hashanah's Aleph. Ina starts with Aleph, Liyadai starts with Hamid, the Samti starts with Abad, L'cha starts with Lamed. So that's Ina, Liyadai, the Samti l'cha, Rosh Hashanah's Aleph. What do we need cities of refuge for Elul? What's this all about? So one of the ways of explaining it is that when a person commits a sin, in a certain sense, he's committing bloodshed. Why is he committing bloodshed? Because it says, we all know from the first chapter in Tanya, that we all have two souls, godly soul and an animal soul. Nefesh Elokis and Nefesh Habatis. The godly soul is called Adam B'Kedusha, man of holiness, and the animal soul is called Adam B'Liyah, evil man. The Pasuk says in Parshas Noach, Sheifech dam ha'adam ba'adam. Literally, Sheifech dam ha'adam ba'adam means spilling the blood of man, ba'adam into man. What if a person commits bloodshed, doesn't spill the blood from man into man? What does it mean, Sheifech dam ha'adam ba'adam? So one of the explanations is that every one of us has two souls, godly soul and soul. When you do a mitzvah, you strengthen your godly soul. When you do a mitzvah, you intensify the sensitivity of your godly soul. When you do an Aveda, you weaken the godly soul, and you strengthen the animal soul. And simply speaking, when we do an Aveda, or even if it's not an Aveda, it's we entertain ourselves with the passion of the pleasures of this world, so we weaken our sensitivity to godliness, and we strengthen our sensitivity to worldly matters, the passions of this world. So the life force of the godly soul is weakened by an Aveda, and the life force of the animal soul is strengthened by an Aveda. That's the idea of Sheifech dam ha'adam ba'adam. Dam, blood, it represents life. Right? Blood is the conduit of life. And spilling the blood of the Adam B'Kedusha into the Adam B'Liyah means siphoning off life and energy from the godly soul and injecting it into the animal soul. So that's a form of murder. Shvichas dam. In Shvichas Damim itself, in murder itself, you can have intentional murder and unintentional murder. So a person can do an Aveda intentionally, a person can do an Aveda unintentionally. So if a person commits murder intentionally, we know what the punishment is. If a person commits murder unintentionally, he has to go to the cities of refuge, to escape to the cities of refuge. That's his kapara, that's his atonement. If we say that every Aveda is like bloodshed, so an Aveda which is committed b'mezid, intentionally, is like intentional bloodshed. An Aveda which is committed unintentionally is like unintentional bloodshed. Now, when we hear the shofar on the Shchei Shalom, which, as Hashem, we will at the end of this year, so every year there's a rouse to children. You hear the shofar, Shana is coming, Kippur is coming. Every year there's a rouse to children. The Pasuk says, is it possible the shofar will be blown in the city and people in the nation will tremble? You hear the shofar is you trembles. When you do tshuva, the tshuva, the basis of tshuva is charat al ha'ava, regret for the past, and kabbalah tov al haba, accepting for the future. Everything's going to be the way it's supposed to be. So a yid, when he hears the shofar, so there are many things in my course of the year that weren't as good as they should have, and he regrets it. He wishes he would have done it otherwise. And he commits himself that from now on, it's going to be different. So when a person commits a sin intentionally, so it says that through tshuva, through tshuva, our intentional sins become like unintentional sins. Why? Because what's the difference between an intentional sin and unintentional sin? An intentional sin has both the act of the sin and the passion, the desire, the intention with which the sin is done. Unintentional sin is an act, but no desire, no intention, no passion. So when a person does tshuva, and he has charat al ha'avar, he regrets what he did. So he retroactively extracts the intention and the desire and the passion from the action. So now, although the action remains, but the intention and the action and the desire and the passion is withdrawn. So what are you left with? You're left with a dry action without any desire, without any passion. So it's like an unintentional sin. So when you do tshuva, your intentional sins become like unintentional sins. Based on what we said before, that every sin is a form of bloodshed. So an intentional sin is intentional bloodshed, and unintentional sin is unintentional bloodshed. And the Shteidish El, he does tshuva, changes all his intentional sins into unintentional sin. And what's the kapara for unintentional bloodshed? To escape to the cities of refuge. What's the cities of refuge? So geographically, the cities of refuge are specific cities in Eretz Yisrael. In time, in the calendar, the cities of refuge are the month of El. Month of El, it's the city of refuge for the whole year. What does it mean? What does it mean to escape to the month of El? So, the Alter Rebbe in the Torah, where he gives a famous mashal of El is like the king in the field, Melech Basar. So he says that when the king is in the field, before he comes into the city, so the people go out to greet the king in the field. What does it mean that people go out? Where are they going out from? Where are they going to? They're going out from a life which is self-centered, centered around themselves. And they're going out to a life which is centered around devotion and dedication to the king. Rabbi uses the words that are brought to this pasuk, Lech lecha me'artzecha u'meladetcha mibeis avicha el ha'aretz asher. Abraham said to Abraham, go out from your land, from your birthplace, from your father's household, to the land that I will show you. So it says that me'artzecha comes from the word ratzon, desire. A person can live a life based on his own desires, based on his own wants. What's my life all about? What I want. So we say, Lech lecha me'artzecha, leave the land which is based on your wants. Umi me'ladetecha, from your birthplace, which means from your habits that you've grown up with, that you've lived with all your life. Umi beis avicha, from the household of your father, your Tanya, the intellect that called parents and the emotion that called offspring. So beis avicha means some of the conclusions of your sake. A person lives by his desires, by his habits, and by the conclusions of his own sake. So go away from your desires, go away from your habits, go away from the conclusions of your own sake, and go el ha'aretz asher an echo, to the land that I, Hashem, will show you. In other words, change your life from a life which is centered around what I want to become a life which is centered around what is Hashem. A life which is centered around what I'm comfortable with, what I'm accustomed to, what I'm in habit of, to a life which is centered around, but what's the will of Hashem? What's my mission in this? What did I come to? What did my neshama send into the body, send into the physical world for? It came here with a mission. I should be focused on the mission. El ha'aretz asher an echo, to the land that I, Hashem, will show you. A lifestyle that is based on Hashem's instructions and Hashem's guidance. So that's what it means to escape to the month of El. To escape from a life which is centered around what I want, what I'm in habit of, what I understand, and to go into a lifestyle which is based on the month of El, which is based on Hashem's will and Hashem's instructions and Hashem's mission. And just like when the unintentional murderer would go to the city of refuge, he would go to stay there. So the attitude of going into the month of El should be to take on this whole new approach in a permanent way, in a lasting way. So that's the idea of Ima liyadei v'samti l'chad asher tevisel. That is true in general. More specifically, Chazal tell us that divrei Torah kelti, the words of Torah act as a city of refuge. The Torah itself is like a city of refuge. So, specifically speaking, the pasuk Ina liyadei v'samti l'chad asher tevisel is focused on the mitzvah of learning Torah. So El is a time to intensify our commitment to Torah study. So as much as one was committed to Torah study all year round, El is a time to intensify that commitment. That is connected to the Ina liyadei v'samti l'chad, which is Arei Miklot, and the words of Torah are considered in Ir Miklot, the city of. Then moving on, we mentioned earlier that there's a pasuk Ani l'doidi v'doidi. So in Shir HaShirim, which is a love story between Hashem and the Jewish people, pasuk says Ani l'doidi, I, the Jewish people, turn to Hashem, who is my lover. V'doidi li, and Hashem reciprocates by turning to me. And we pointed out that the letters Ani, l'doidi, v'doidi li make up the Rasha Tevis Elul. As I mentioned before, it's also the 4 yuds at the end of the word of the 40 days between Shteidish Elul and Yom Kippur. So when is the emphasis on the love relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people? In our Avodas Hashem, what aspect of our Avodas Hashem is focused on developing and nurturing the love that exists between Hashem and the Jewish people and the Jewish people and Hashem, it's davening. In davening, in tefillah, our focus is, our goal is to develop an emotional relationship with Hashem. Ezu aveda shebalev zu tefillah. The pasuk avdei b'chol levavcha, serve Him with all your heart. Normally, service in the Torah refers to service to the Hamikdash. Karbanis, keperes. The pasuk says avdei b'chol levavcha, serve Him with all your heart. Our Chachamim asked, Ezu aveda shebalev, what kind of service is with the heart? And the answer is tefillah. Prayer is service with the heart. Why is prayer service with the heart? Because prayer is the exercise of developing our emotional relationship with Hashem. In davening, we start off with Psukkah de Zimra, the verses that praise Hashem for how He manifests His greatness in creation and sustaining everything and sustaining us and providing for us. Then we come to Birchas Tishma, and we talk about the service of the angels, the Malachim, how they stand in awe before Hashem. And then we talk in Abbas Olam about the love that Hashem demonstrates to the Jewish people. And all that is to help us come to the level where, when we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and we contemplate, and Hashem is our God, He's our provider, He's our creator, He provides everything, He looks after us. Hashem Echad, He's one and only, there's nothing else besides Him. And that will lead to V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha, you will love the Lord your God, b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol neidecha, with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. So davening is developing an emotional relationship with Hashem. Anila Daidi, the Daidi Elul tells us that the month of Elul is a time when we put more focus on our davening. We say the extra kapitel Tilum David Hashem Oiri, the Shachris and the Mincha. We have the extra 3 kapitla. We have today's Hayom Yom. Those that follow the Hayom Yom will know that it's brought Al Rebbe, brought from the Mizrach Shemagi, who heard from the Baal Shem Tov, who heard from his well-known teacher Achi Ashiloni, and from the second day of Shtei Elul, which is today, until Erev Yom Kippur, every day we say 3 chapters of Tilum. We start Aleph Beis Gimel today, tomorrow's Daled Hey Vav, and we continue 3 chapters of Tilum every day until Erev Yom Kippur inclusive. And on Yom Kippur, we finish the last 36 chapters. 9 before Kol Nidre, 9 before going to bed, 9 after Musaf, and 9 after Ne'ilah. And that completes the entire Tilum, a special cycle of Tilum for the 40 days of Rachman V'Ratzin from Shtei Elul till Yom Kippur. So we have various extra additions in Tefillah, Slichas, I would say Slichas the whole month of Elul, we say Slichas the last week of Elul, but there's adding in Tefillah in davening, and also in Kavanas Tefillah, in the attention that we give to our davening, focus that davening, in intent that's put into davening. So that's Anila Daidi, the Daidi leader should take itself. Then there is, in the Megillah, have the pasuk Umishleach Manos Ish L'Re'eu Umatanos La'Avyainu. So the words Ish L'Re'eu Umatanos La'Avyainu are Aleph Lamed Vav Lamed. Ish L'Re'eu Umatanos La'Avyainu. The Rosh Hashanah, which tells us that Elul is a time. Ish Mishleach Manos Ish L'Re'eu, he sent gifts man to his fellow. Matanis L'Avyainu, and gifts to the poor. So Elul is a time to strengthen ourselves in Avos Yisrael, in our relationship with our fellow man, Yilas Chasadim, acts of loving kindness. So those are the 3 areas: Torah, Avodah, and Yilas Chasadim. Torah is in the other something. Avodah is Anila David, and Yilas Chasadim is Ish L'Re'eu Matanis L'Avyainu. So Elul is a time of strengthening ourselves in the areas of Avos Yisrael. Simply to make a cheshbon of where we're holding and how we treated our fellow man, how can we improve, more chesed, more ava, and to strengthen more aftos Yisrael, more unity amongst the people. So that's the 3 pillars upon which the world stands. Then there's a 4th Rosh Hashanah. 4th Rosh Hashanah is from Parshas Nitzavim, which we're also going to read in the month of Elul, last Shabbos in the month of Elul. That is, Umal Hashem Elokecha es levavcha ve'es levav zarech. So the Almighty will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed, your children. So es levavcha ve'es levav is Rosh Hashanah Elul. Es starts with an aleph, levavcha with a lamed, ve'es with a vav, levav with a lamed. That is the idea of tshuva. As we mentioned before, Elul is a month of tshuva. Then we have A fifth Rosh Hashanah, we say every day in Daven, Parshas B'Shalach. Oz Yashir Moshe of Bnei Yisrael, Ashira Hazais Lashem, Vayim Leimer, Ashira Lashem. Moshe and the Jewish people sang when they crossed the Red Sea. They sang the Shira song to Hashem. And what did they say? Ashira Vayim Leimer. They said, saying Ashira Lashem, I will sing to Hashem. So Ashira Lashem, Vayim Leimer, so should take us out. Or Leimer, Vayim Leimer. Lashem vayemnu leimer ashira is El backwards. Lashem vayemnu leimer ashira. So that is the theme of this pasuk, is Geula, redemption, liberation. Simply speaking, this is the song that the Jewish people sang after being liberated from Egypt, completely liberated from the Egyptians when they saw Vayar Yisrael Mitzrayim Esal Sfas Hayam. They saw that they finally got rid of Pharaoh's army and all this. Saw the Egyptians dead on the banks of the sea, shores of the sea. So they sang the Shira. They were rid of Mitzrayim. So that's Geula. And on a deeper level, the Gemara says that how do we know from the Torah that the dead will be resurrected? We know it from this pasuk, Oz Yashir Moshe. Then Moshe will sing. Literal translation of the word Yashir means he will sing. When will Moshe sing? Mashiach comes, the ultimate redemption. So Moshe and the Jewish people will all sing to Hashem in thanksgiving for his redemption, will be the Shir Chadam. So the pasuk Vayemnu Leimer Ashira Hashem, which is Rosh Hashanah Elul, represents the concept of Geula, liberation and redemption. So we have a five-pronged process over this: Torah, Aveda, Gemilas Chasadim, Tshuva, and Geula. Question is, Torah, Aveda, Gemilas Chasadim, I understand. But Tshuva, if I'm going to improve in Torah, right? I regret anything that has been lax in my commitment to Torah. I take on a whole new relationship with the study of Torah, and I'm going to fix up whatever needs to be fixed up in Aveda. That's on the day to day daily. And I'm going to fix up everything that needs to be fixed up in Gemilas Chasadim. So I've already done Tshuva. Isn't that Tshuva? Tshuva means to fix up whatever needs fixing. So why do I need another Rosh Hashanah for Tshuva? What does that add? And the next question is, the fifth Rosh Hashanah is Geula. Shira Hashem Vayemnu is Geula. What is Geula as far as Avodah is concerned? All the Rosh Hashanah and Elul are the Avodah of Chedusha, what we're meant to be engaged in Parshas. We're meant to be engaged in intensifying our prayer study. We're meant to be engaged in intensifying our prayer. We're meant to be engaged in intensifying our relationship with our fellow Jew. We're meant to be engaged in Tshuva. But what does it mean when we say that Rosh Hashanah is Geula? Shira Lashem Vayemnu Leimer. What kind of Avodah is Geula? Geula is something that Eibishter has to give us as a reward for all our efforts. How is it one of the Rosh Hashanahs of El the same as the other? So to address these two questions, start with the first. First, what is Tshuva? And why is it necessary to have Tshuva in addition to Torah, Aveda, and Gemilas? So we have to understand that Tshuva is not just fixing up what was missing. Tshuva is a whole different dimension of relationship with Hashem. And to clarify that, I'll begin with a famous story in the Gemara. The Gemara says that there was an individual called Elazar ben Durdai. Elazar ben Durdai was a person who was a Baal Aveda. He sinned the worst sins. And then at one point in his life, something struck him. And he realized that he's on the wrong track. He realized that he's gone very far from Hashem. And he developed a tremendous yearning to return to Hashem. And the Gemara says that he placed his head between his knees and he broke out crying. Cried with yearning to Hashem. Realized how far he is, how desperate he is to return to Hashem. Cried and cried and cried and cried and cried until his soul expired. So Yotzes Baskel, a heavenly voice came out from heaven and proclaimed, Rabbi Elazar ben Durdaya Mizuman L'chaye Ha'od. Rabbi Elazar ben Durdaya is set for a place in the world. Then the Gemara says something phenomenal. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, tzaddik of his time, author of the Mishnah, the leader of the Jewish people, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi cried out of envy of Rabbi Elazar ben Dardaya, and he said, "Wow, yesh kaina ilamay b'shah achas." Look at this. Here you have a situation where a man acquired his entire Elam Haba in b'shah achas. What does b'shah achas mean? Simple meaning is in one moment. The word shah also has another meaning. Pasuk says in Parshas Bereshis, "Vayisha Hashem el Hevel ve'minchasei." Hashem turned to Hevel and to his gift. Vel Kayin vel minchasei lo shah. And to Kayin and to his gift he didn't turn. So the word shah lo shah means to turn. So yesh kaina ilame b'shah achas. Sometimes a person can acquire his entire Elam Haba with one turn. One turn away from the lifestyle that he was living in. He made one turn. That yearning cry of tshuva acquired him his entire Elam Haba. So Rabbi was very impressed, very taken by this event. He said, "Yesh kaina ilame b'shah achas." Bacha Rabbi v'amar. Rabbi cried of envy, and he said, "Look at this, Rabbi Elazar ben Dardaya, what he achieved in in one moment and in one turn." So the obvious question is, why was Rabbi envious of Rabbi Elazar ben Dardaya? Probably Rabbi also had a share in the world. Rabbi, who spent his whole life learning Torah and teaching Torah and looking after the needs of Klal Yisrael, it's a perfect tzaddik. Surely he had a whopping share in Elam. So why is he envious of Rabbi Elazar ben Dardaya and he says, "Yesh kain Elam b'shah"? The answer is that Rabbi realized that everything that he achieved as a tzaddik is only with a measure. Because at the end of the day, a tzaddik serves Hashem in a measured way. Everything is correct, perfect, ticks off all the boxes. But Rabbi Elazar ben Dardaya, when he cried in yearning to Hashem, he put in his passion, he put in his neshama, he put in his kishkis into this yearning to Hashem. The makim shebalei tshuva ein tzaddikim putting the place where the Baal Tshuva stands, even the perfect tzaddik can't stand, because the Baal Tshuva cries out to Hashem, yearns to Hashem from the bottom of his soul, from the bottom of his heart. His whole essence is invested in that yearning, which is infinitely greater than the avodah of a tzaddik. So tshuva is not just ticking off all the boxes. Tshuva is bringing a new dimension into our avodah Hashem, that the avodah Hashem should come from the bottom of the heart, should come from the essence of the soul. So when we say that Elul is not only the Shetevus, Torah, Avodah, and Milos Chasadim, we have the Samti of Anila Deidi, the Deidi Li, and Ishli Eva, Torah, that's ticking off all the boxes. Elul is Shetevus, Es Levavcha, Es Levat, Tshuva, serving Hashem from the essence of the soul. Then, coming to the final question that we asked about Geula, what Avodah is Geula? We understand that we mentioned before that that's connected with Geula, with liberation and redemption. So we understand that liberation and redemption is a gift to us from Hashem. How is it our avodah? What are we supposed to do in the direction of Geula? So this can be understood by mentioning that which we all know, that each and every one of us has a neshama. And the neshama is a chelik of the tam ma'al ma'ash, literally a part of Hashem. Now, being that our essence is our neshama, and our neshama is literally a part of Hashem, Tanya, the neshama yearns to Hashem. Neshama is nein Hashem nishmas adam. The candle of Hashem is the soul of man. It's just like a candle flickers and tries to lift itself off the wick and return to the source. So the neshama has this inner drive, this inner desire, this inner yearning to become one with Hashem. Right? So, considering the fact that our essence is our neshama, you ask yourself a simple question. If you ask the neshama, would you like to study Torah and unite with Hashem in the most perfect union through the study of Torah? Is there a question what the neshama wants? Or do you want to just waste it? Is it a question what the neshama would prefer? You ask the neshama, would you like to concentrate on your davening, or would you like to just mumble up a davening? We know what the neshama would answer. You ask the neshama, someone comes to your door and asks you for tzedakah. Should you tell them, sorry, nobody home? Or should you, with warmth and with care, look after them and show them how important they are to you? We know what the neshama would want. So why is it that we struggle sometimes to make the right decisions. If you have such a beautiful neshama is so obviously we want to do only the right thing. The answer is yes, we have a beautiful neshama, but the neshama is contained in a trap, in an imprisonment, in a confinement of the guf and nefesh habahamis, of the body and the animal soul. And sometimes the body and the animal soul confine the neshama, constrict the neshama, and don't give it the opportunity to properly express itself. So it's a continuous battle between the neshama that is constricted and confined in this imprisonment, and the imprisonment itself, which is the guf and nefesh habahamis. Continuous battle. So if we would experience geula, we could liberate our neshama from its confinement and its constriction, then neshama would shine forth in the most incredible way. So it's the work of working on liberating our neshama, releasing our neshama from its bondage, redeeming and liberating our neshama from the constriction and the confinement of the body and the animal soul that is confining. Let the neshama take charge. Put the neshama in the driver's seat. That's the rule. That's the avodah of Chedusha. Avodah of Chedusha is to get in touch with our neshama, realize who we really are, to the point where it becomes obvious, because the neshama is shining. It's not a question whether we want to do the right thing or not do the wrong thing. Neshama is in the driver's seat. It's a whole different story. So that's the 5 Neshama of Elul: Torah, Avodah, Chasadim, Shuvah, and Guru. So we have our work cut out for the month of Elul. Next 40 days, we're not going to get through. Along these lines, since the time of Tshuva, so often in previous years, we have focused during the month of Elul on learning Yigeres HaKudim. So there's 5 sections in Tanya. First section is the Putei Amorim. The second section is Shara Yichud V'Amunah. Generally, we learn the Putei Amorim this year. Last few weeks, we've been learning Shara Yichud V'Amunah. Third section is Yigeres HaTshuva. Fourth section is Yigeres HaKodesh. The fifth section is Parshas. So Yigeres HaTshuva, which is very appropriate to the month of Elul, begins on page 108 in the numbers on top of the page, which is equivalent to the numbers on the bottom of the page. I don't think we have Mr. Suffolk with us today, so...
yes, you do, but you have to give me time.
You haven't let us down.
You say 100. Well, I haven't got 108 at the top yet, so I can't tell you. What the Hebrew was.
No problem. Nobody's putting any pressure on you.
What's the Hebrew at the top? Because...
it's the page between Tzaddik and Tzaddik Aleph.
Tzaddik and Tzaddik Aleph. Okay.
180 on top of the page.
Okay. So the bottom is 345 and 346.
345.
Yeah.
345.
But that's not the beginning. It starts the previous page, 180, right?
Yeah, 180.
So it's 344, 343, 344.
Okay, thank you very much. 344. Sugar?
Just the law is that if you're looking for the English, you'll keep getting the Hebrew.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so page 344.
No. You said that during Elul.
I said that Elul is the cities of Elul. Let me make it clear. Elul in time is the cities of refuge. Yeah, just like you have the cities of refuge in the geographical sense, you have in the calendar sense, Elul. Month of Elul is the city of refuge. So I explained that in a general sense, that committing, deviating from the ways of the Torah is compared to committing bloodshed, and the correction of that takes place in the month of Elul is like the cities of refuge. And I mentioned that that's true about all of Avodas Hashem, but it's specifically true about Torah because the Gemara says that the words of Torah are a city of refuge. So, therefore, Elul is a very appropriate time to intensify our commitment to the study of Torah. Okay, so on the top of the page, on page 180, numbers on top of the page, 344, numbers on bottom. Have it? So the top of the page, you'll see the word Igeres HaTshuva. Correct? So in the Luach HaTikun in the back, it actually says that what it's supposed to say is L'kutei Amarim Chelek Shlishi Hanikra B'Shem Igeres HaTshuva. So it's the third section of L'kutei Amarim, which is called by the name Igeres HaTshuva. So we'll begin with focusing on the fact that this is the third section of L'kutei Amarim. Now the Frierdiker Rebbe points out in his talks that the various sections of Tanya correspond to the sections of the Shulchan Aruch. The sections of the Shulchan Aruch is made up of 4 sections. Eirach Chaim, path of life. Yored Deya talks about, literally means showing knowledge. So it educates us as to what is permissible and what is forbidden. So we have the laws of kashrus and things that have to do with permissible and forbidden. Then we have Eben Ha'ezer, which is the laws of marriage, family law. And then we have Cheshen Mishpat, which is monetary. So the 4 sections of Tanya, Kutei Amarim, Taricha B'Amunah, Geras HaTshuva, and Geras HaKodesh, correspond to the 4 sections of the Shoftim. So the first section of Tanya, the Kutei Amarim, which we studied various times, a number of times this year, talks about the way of the service of Hashem, day-to-day service of Hashem, how a Jew should serve Hashem with love and fear. So we understand that just like there's the Eirach Chaim of Shulchan Aruch, which is the laws of how to serve Hashem in daily life, so there is the Eirach Chaim of Tanya, Kutei Amarim, which teaches us how to serve Hashem with pnimius, with love of Hashem and fear. Then we have Shar HaYichud B'Amunah. Shar HaYichud B'Amunah is the philosophical side of Tanya. You remember in the last few weeks when we're learning Shar HaYichud B'Amunah, it gets very philosophical about the oneness of Hashem. So that's the Yored Deya. It teaches you the knowledge, the Atar Esol Adas, the philosophical part of Judaism. Then we have Igeres HaKodesh, the 4th section, which talks about tzedakah in general, and specifically tzedakah to Eretz Yisrael. So that corresponds to Cheshen Mishpat, which is the monetary laws of Shulchan Aruch. So the Cheshen Mishpat of Tanya is Igeres HaKodesh. So that leaves us Igeres HaTshuva, 3rd section of Tanya, which corresponds to the 3rd section of Shulchan Aruch. 3rd section of Shulchan Aruch is Eben Ha'ezer, the laws of marriage, family, laws of marriage, divorce, and all matters to do with family law. So what does Igeres HaTshuva have to do with family law? So be'emes, there's a Maimer Chazal, a beautiful Maimer Chazal, that explains this. Chazal say, Gedoyla Tshuva, Shedoicha es loises eshabetay. Tshuva is so great that it supersedes a negative commandment. What's the negative commandment of the Torah that Tshuva supersedes? It says like this. We read in the Torah, next week Sunday, the saints say, that if a man marries a woman and it doesn't work out, and the Rahman al-Islam, they get divorced. The Torah says exactly how that should happen. Then she is free to go and marry anybody else. What happens if she marries another man and that doesn't work out? If she gets divorced from the second marriage, or the second husband passes away, so then she's not allowed to go back to her first husband. Once she's married to another man, she can never go back to her first husband. Her first husband cannot once again remarry her once she's been married to another man after the divorce. Okay. Now, the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people is compared to a marriage. Hashem is the chassan, we're the kalim. When we sin, so we are telling Hashem, have a nice day. We're terminating our relationship. We're not interested in you. So that's like a divorce. And if we commit ourselves to other isms, then we're entering into a marriage to someone else. be my desires, my passions. There's various things that I can commit myself to, devote myself to instead of Hashem. Now, what happens when I realize how bankrupt all those things that I devoted myself to are, and I want to return to Hashem? So it's like the woman who was divorced for the second time, wanting to return to her first husband. And the pasuk says it doesn't work. So we want to return to Hashem, but there's a negative mitzvah in the Torah that's preventing us from doing this. So the Medrash and the Gemara says, Tshuva is so great that it can supersede this negative commandment of the Torah. Hashem says to us, no matter what happened, you can always come back to it. So it follows that the whole idea of Tshuva is the remarriage of the Jewish people to Hashem. So we understand why Igeres HaTshuva would be the Eben HaEzer, the laws of family law, laws of marriage, divorce, and associated matters of Tanya. This Tshuva is like the remarriage after the divorce. That's on a simple level. On a deeper, perhaps more Kabbalistic level, we're going to learn that tshuva is made up of two words. Tashuv, Hey. The Hey shall return. Hashem's name is Yud Kei Vav Kei. So when a Jew sins, he separates the Hey, which is the Shechina, from the Yud Kei Vav of Hashem. It says that when a Jew sins, he separates his neshama from the Almighty, and the Shechina, which is the source of our neshama, is also severed from the Yud Kei Vav. And tshuva is tashuv Hey, returning the Hey. That's ordinary tshuva, lower tshuva. Then there's the higher form of tshuva, which is returning the tshuva ilah. The higher form of tshuva is tashuv Hey ilah. There's two Heys. There's the last Hey, which is to return to the Yud Kei Vav. Or there's the first Hey, which is to return to the Yud. That's in the higher form of tshuva. So the lower form of tshuva is the returning of the lower Hey. The higher form of tshuva is the returning of the higher. Now, Hey in general is a feminine letter. You know that if you take any word in Lashon Kodesh, you want to turn it from masculine to feminine, you add a Hey. Right? Ish becomes Isha. So tshuva is associated with the Hey, which is the feminine. So Seder Nashim is tshuva, Igeres HaTshuva. That explains Kabbalistically why Igeres HaTshuva is connected with Eben HaEzer, family. So that's why it's Chelik Sefer Lekutei Amorim Chelik Shlishi, and Nikra B'Shein Igeres HaTshuva. Now, what does the word Igeres mean? Igeres means a letter. You write a letter to someone. Nowadays, people don't do that anymore. They send emails. Once upon a time, when Zaidi was young, some people used to write letters. Yeah. So an Igeres is a letter. So this is called Igeres HaTshuva, the epistle or the letter of Tshuva. Now, it's a bit peculiar because this is not a letter. This is an essay that has 12 chapters explaining the mitzvah of Tshuva. So why is it called an Igeres? Now, we do have the word Igeres also in the fourth section of Tanya, Igeres HaKoyim. But over there, it makes sense why it's called Igeres, because over there, most of Igeres HaKoyim is compiled of letters that the Alter Rebbe sent to various communities in fundraising efforts for Koil Chabad, for the institution that he set up to raise funds to send to the community that was established in Eretz Yisrael to assist them in Eretz Yisrael. So it's called Igeres HaKodesh, as it says in the introduction, which is Rubam Hayu Igeres Shaluach. The majority of the chapters of Igeres HaKodesh are letters that the Alter Rebbe sent to various communities at various times to encourage them about the giving of tzedakah. So it makes sense that would be called Igeres HaKodesh. But over here, Igeres HaTshuva, it's nothing to do with a letter. Why would he call this section of Tanya Igeres HaTshuva? In fact, in the first edition of Tanya, the first manuscript edition of Tanya, it doesn't say use the word Igeres at all. It's the Havin Inyan HaTshuva, that Tzara, to explain the concept of Tshuva in short. It doesn't use the word Igeres. So why does he name this section of Tanya Igeres HaTshuva? to make this question a little stronger, in Torah in the commentary that the Alter Rebbe writes on Megillas Esther, he mentions about the fact that the Megillah is called an Igeris, a letter. And he says that it's called a Sefer and it's called an Igeris. And he explains over there that a Sefer is something which is permanent. You have a book, study the book, and you finish the book. What do you do with it? Put it on the shelf. You look forward to reviewing it. When you read a letter, letter comes in the post, you read it, finish reading it, what do you do with it? Throw it in the recycling bin. Yeah? So an Igeris is temporary, and a Sefer is permanent. So tshuva, we would think, is ultimate permanence. Because we know that the mashal is used that when a person sins, it's like tearing the string that attaches us to Hashem. When we do tshuva, it's like putting a knot in the string, re-knotting it, retying it. And we know that in the place of the knot, the string is strongest. So tshuva brings permanence into our connection to Hashem. So why would we use a name like Geras to describe a essay on tshuva? So one of the answers is that in the Megillah, where we have this question about why it's called Igeris, Alter Rebbe points out that the Megillah is called Sefer, it says V'nichtav b'Sefer, and it's also called Igeris. Igeris hapurim azei sashemis. Why is it called with both names? So he explains over there that in the Megillah, there's various levels. It exists on various levels. For example, you have the various ministers of Achashverosh. Harshana, Sheisar, Admasa, Sarshish, Meres, Parshas, and Menucha. Yeah. So who are these people? They were Shikar Goyim. They don't deserve to have their names in the Holy Book. But that's the story. On a deeper level, everything in the Megillah reflects divine realities on a heavenly level. Right? The whole story of the Megillah that says Hamelech in the Megillah and refers to Achashverosh, behind the scenes, it's the real Hamelech is the Almighty. It says by Yemer Haman Hamelech Achashverosh, it's Satan coming before the Almighty. It's all talking about things going on in heaven. So when it says Karshan or Sheisha, Admasa, Sarshi, it's talking about heavenly realities, talking about angels and spirits, the highest thing. So it has two meanings. It has a meaning on a superficial level. It has a meaning on a higher level. So Igeres describes the meaning on a superficial level. Meaning on a superficial level, Meres, Marsin, Amabucham, chuck them out. They had a meaning for the time, and that's it. But all these things also have a deeper reality on a heavenly level. And those are eternal. So therefore it's called Sefer and it's called Igeres. So with that in mind, you can understand why Igeres HaTshuva is called Igeres HaTshuva. In order to come to Tshuva, which is a very, very deep and permanent, strong relationship with Hashem, as we mentioned earlier, the Memakim Shabbat Tshuva, Ein Tzadikim Murim Nechelim, the place where Tshuva stands, even a perfect tzaddik can't stand. He said that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was envious of the Lazar of the guy. In order to get to Tshuva, the normal order of things is that first the person sins. And because he sins, he becomes very distant from Hashem. Because he becomes very distant from Hashem, he develops a tremendous yearning and thirst to reconnect to Hashem. And that inspires him to develop this very passionate connection. So there's two components over here. There's the sin and the separating himself and the distancing himself from Hashem. Then there's the very special relationship which comes through Tshuva. So the first part of the equation, which is the sinning, that's temporary. Separation from Hashem is only superficial and it's only some temporary. Once you've done with it, you can discard it. But the newfound intense relationship with Hashem that Tshuva brings, that eternal connection, that's forever. So it's called Sefer Lekutei Amarim Chelik Shlishi, Hanikra B'Shem Igeres HaTshuva. So it's called a Sefer and it's also called Igeres. Because in Tshuva you have both those dimensions. permanence of tshuva and the very temporary role that the sin plays in the whole picture. Then that's on one level. Then there's another level. That is that an igeres, a letter, is something that you send to a distant place. Right? If you have to tell something to the person that's sitting in the next office, you don't send them a letter. Today everything's done. You pick yourself up, you walk over to the next office and say what you want to say. Send a letter to a distant place. So the point that the Alter Rebbe wants to communicate to Igeres HaTshuva, as we in the beginning of Tanya, the Rebbe says that the Tanya is based on the pasuk This matter is very close to you, very accessible to you, in your mouth and in your heart to do. So we explained in the introduction to Tanya that what is the Alter Rebbe trying to say? Hadavar hazeh. What is hadavar hazeh? Which is the davar? So there's two interpretations in the Parshas, the commentaries of the pasuk, Parshas Nitzavim. Give two interpretations. One interpretation is that hadavar refers to Torah and mitzvahs. So all of Torah and mitzvahs is accessible within reach, every one of them. According to other Mefarshim, the Ramban says that hadavar refers to what it says in the previous psukim about tshuva. Hadavar refers to tshuva. Tshuva is very accessible. So the pasuk has two meanings. So in the first section of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe bases the whole Tanya on the pasuk and he shows you Eichu Karev Ma'od, how it's really accessible for a Jew to serve Hashem, not only to learn Torah and do all the mitzvahs, but actually do them with love of Hashem and fear of Hashem. And in Tanya, in the first section, he guides us as to how we can achieve that. Geras HaTshuva is about tshuva. So it's also based on the pasuk but the davar is tshuva. So tshuva is accessible to every one of us. Now, one of the Yetzer Hara's very famous tricks, very famous schemes, comes to a person. He tells him, yes, tshuva is for everybody else. But for you, you've gone so far, there's no turning. So forget about it. Just continue where you're going. For anywhere in lost case, forget about it. We know that's not true. No matter how far a yid has gone, the doors of tshuva or gates of tshuva are always open. It's accessible to you in your mouth and your heart to do at every level, no matter how far a Jew has gone. The gates of tshuva are always open. So the Alter Rebbe sends an igeres. He sends a letter, which a letter is something you send to a very distant place. So a yid who finds himself spiritually in a very, very distant place, the Alter Rebbe is reaching out to him with this essay, the Igeres HaTshuva, to remind him and to arouse him and to encourage him to know that wherever he is, no matter how far he's gone, it's accessible to you to do tshuva, to return to Hashem. Hashem will receive you with open arms, and you can reach a level which will be greater than a tzaddik. Are there any questions? I didn't use the mashal of the infant. I used the mashal of the sefer and the igeres. So relatively speaking, books are permanent, and letters, in most cases, are temporary. So the word sefer on its own represents permanence. The word igeres on its own represents temporary. That's what I'm saying. The Megillah is a scroll, but the Megillah is called in the Megillah. The word Megillah doesn't appear in the words that appear describing the Megillah in the Megillah are sefer and igeres. So that's what you can learn from the top line of a page in Tanya, right? Just the top line before we even got to Peter Hashem. Next week we'll get on to Peter. And we're going to conclude the shiur with the blowing of the shofar, so nobody run away yet.